Hello, good evening, and welcome, and all those other good things. Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. At the moment, it's just Simon and I. Everyone else is being very, very tardy. Before I start, remember this. This land is your land. This land is my land. And straight after that, I'm going to say happy birthday to Loretta. I know that's why she's not with us tonight, because it's her birthday and she's out. Oh, I nearly swore. She's out for a drink. It's Simon Wilks, and he's in Switzerland, and his company is called UAVenture. Quite a clever play on words there, Simon. I like that. UAVenture. And you make kind of specialist software for VTOLs and separate list thrusts. So maybe we can start talking about that.
Sure. Yeah, we started the company a bit over 2 years ago, and yeah, spent a bit of time looking for a nice name and came up with this one. And it really is, a mix of UAVs, a venture, and an adventure. And we've been having a lot of fun building this system and really sort of exploring sort of the next level. We wanted to really try and bring sort of a next generation flight control system and a way of interfacing with users, to really to bring the everyday operator in, and that means not people who are very experienced flying drones. So we wanted to really address those. That was one of our main goals, so that the average farmer could really make use of this. And the other thing that we wanted to do too is we realized that already a couple of years ago that the commercial drone sector is going to see a continual drop in prices, as again you start moving these systems out into the hands of individuals. And we wanted something that was also priced in that area. We would build this in a way that we could really have our platform integrated into products that are going to sell for $2,000 upwards. So the talk is by 2020, it's the average price is going to be around $2,500–3,500 for a low-end commercial drone. So that's sort of the direction that we headed in, and we wanted to focus on something quite special that was coming up, and that's where we hit the hybrid VTOL area, as we refer to it, and we've been focusing on that solidly for well over a year now, and we see that as something that has a lot of advantages in it. It's something that's new, is getting people's attention, and we're very curious as well to see how far this goes. And we really saw a big so there was quite a bit missing in the lower end of the market. You have your high-end products out there, commercial high-end products, military, but really sort of low to mid-range, there wasn't a lot happening. So what we did is we've been building this flight control product, so essentially an autopilot, along with a custom ground control station, and have focused on hybrid VTOLs, so that vendors, being manufacturers or solution providers or service providers, can take this, integrate it into a VTOL of their choice, and sell that product, use that product to their end users. So that's
I just want to say, cool. Sorry, Simon. I want to say, g'day to Bruce. How you going?
G'day, Bruce.
Mate.
Good.
G'day.
I don't know, is it good? Is it good day? It is good day in New Zealand. Obviously, I didn't know it might have been a very offensive then, mightn't it? That could have been a very offensive term. So sorry about that. And I just want to wind back to Simon. He's not long started talking. So you said you wanted to make it easy to use for the end users, for the people using it to gather data. Well, how have you done that, Simon? Why is it easier than any other system? Why is it easier than an RG pilot or something from DJI?
Right. So what we've been hearing also from experienced operators, but as well as sort of everyday people who are trying to use drones for commercial purposes, is that they don't understand a lot of the the bells and whistles that are sort of there in a standard product or a standard system like Q Ground Control or Mission Planner or some of the higher end commercial systems. And we wanted to take away the kind of, so when you're planning a mission that you have to type numbers in for altitude. So we've got a 3D style for the app. So when you set altitudes, I can perhaps show you afterwards, you switch to a 3D mode, and then you're able to just drag the mission points to their heights. So it's much more intuitive. You can rotate the whole plan and see how it looks. And we've we've separated the application into various user levels. So you can change operator modes. You can go from a basic operator right through to an advanced technician, for example. And it will show you then the kind of things that you need to see for the type of user that you are. Even operators have been saying to us who are very experienced with this that even though they're quite capable of using some of the advanced systems out there, when they're flying and doing a job, they want to focus on just the job and only see the essential information. And so those are those two types of use cases that we focused on. So it's an Android-based product. So it'll run on a very wide range of tablets, which are also available throughout Asia as well. So price is definitely a plus point there. And as I said, we've made a lot of use of 3D graphics for the way that we render this in a very, almost a game style, I guess, to approach it this way, taking away a lot of the complexity.
You're talking very much there of the ground control station, of course, which I suppose is the human-machine interface that we all end up using.
Right.
But obviously, there's two parts to this. There's the stuff that's flying in the aircraft, like the flying wing behind you there, and the GCS. So you've built both parts in a more intuitive style, shall I say? So if I came to you with an airframe, or could I buy the system off you and then integrate it into something I've built?
Yeah, so we are focusing on manufacturers primarily, or solution providers. But if you had something that you wanted to build and then resell, I mean, we're trying to focus on that type of customer at the moment. But essentially, yes, if you would build something, then you can take the autopilot, install it in your system. We have and the guide that will help you get that up and going and provide support as well. And off you go. So you can use that purely with an RC, but of course with the tablet you get the best experience. So I mean, if we have a look at some of these planes in the background, for example, this is the one in the middle here. Maybe I can just move over a little bit so we can see it a little closer. The one that we have here that we've worked on together with Flying Wings in the UK. This is one that they've designed, a hybrid VTOL system, and together with our autopilot and the flight control system, and it's also used in conjunction with the tablet-based ground control station. And so that's something that we've been working on tuning with them. This one's a prototype. They then go out and start manufacturing this and selling it to their end users or solution providers.
I've actually got a picture. And full disclosure, I know Rob very well from Flying Wings, and he's a really nice bloke.
He is. It's been great working with him.
Yeah, and there it is on his website. So that's available for £1,195. That's quite a chunk of wedge, isn't it? What's Rob? How much profit's Rob making on that? I mean, that's a lot of money for a flying wing. Sell it to me. Why would I be buying that expensive flying wing from Rob?
So, well, first of all, it's not a flying wing. So, I mean, it's not just a flying wing. I think that's what makes the difference here is that it's the flying wing part is actually very much the cheapest part of this. The most expensive part of it really is the electronics inside. So the autopilot, and then of course you have a full quadcopter setup on top of this, and that's what does make hybrid VTOLs quite pricey. I should also say with this is the sort of the first run there, and it was something that we did together because what we're after is when we talk to manufacturers and they're interested in building their own hybrid VTOL or converting their system across to ours, the first thing you want to do is try it out. And so rather than building their own foamy with whatever is out there and us spending a lot of time trying to help them get it going, we say, look, here's one that you can buy off the shelf. It's ready to fly, and they can run their tests through with this. It's all perfectly tuned, and then make a decision based on that. So it is a demo. It is something to experiment with. It'll carry a GoPro, but it's by no means going to do your big mapping job. So really, getting back to your original question, the price is really just for the components that's in it. It's
okay. Have you got any thoughts on these sort of aircraft, Bruce?
Yeah, it's interesting. The price. We look at the price, like people like ourselves look at it and go, ooh, that's a bit spendy, isn't it? But the reality is that from an end user perspective, the value they're getting is they take it out of the box and they use it. We're happy to tinker and add bits and play around with flight controller settings and things. There's an immense amount of value in being able to buy something off the shelf and go and use it. Look at DJI. That's how they've made their money. They have produced a turnkey camera in the sky. And sure, you can build your own drone for a fraction of the price, but it'll take you weeks or months of learning and so forth. So I think we're the only people who get price sticker shock when we see these things, because we know how much the bits cost, but we tend to undervalue our time, whereas the consumer, the customer, the person who buys this, they do value their time, and it's a bargain.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying there. So separate lift thrust, Simon, is that really going to be a thing? I see it as which that is behind there. Yeah. I see it as dragging a quadcopter around for an hour or whatever it is. I'm not quite seeing the huge advantage. Maybe you can change my mind.
So first off, you're right. I mean, depending on what type that you're looking at, it is carrying a lot of stuff around with it. And I think that's when you can look at the different types that are out there. So we don't just work with this type. We also support the tilt rotor. Actually, a little bit like, okay, this is a toy one, but this is one that we also put on DIY drones recently that we also have it running on our flight control system. So we put a Pixhawk in there. And we're working with some other partners at the moment, and we'll be announcing that soon, probably after Drones for Good, tilt rotor based systems. And so they also have the ability to make a much more efficient use of the props that they use for flight. But so basically, yes, you're carrying more weight around with you, but there are a number of advantages, and they're things that should be weighed up, because obviously a hybrid VTOL is certainly not ideal for all situations. Where we see that they excel is when you want to offer people an autonomous system that's very easy to use. So if you're using it, like you see on the screen there now with a tablet, these things start vertically. So you don't have to think at all about wind directions, having enough room for a fixed wing to land in. Is the terrain suitable or not? Launching by catapult is a lot of stress on the plane. Landing by parachute also, it's not going to last very long. So certainly launching and landing is trivial and fits very well with an autonomous system. And then once you're in fixed wing flight, you have the advantages of a fixed wing. So clearly, if you're going to do a small job and survey a football field, you're not going to be using something like this. But you still can do your relatively efficient long-distance flights, so large surveys or fence inspections, pipeline inspections, and you'll pay the price on efficiency because you're carrying something along that where you're going to take a hit. So it's a trade-off. The other thing where we see a big advantage is when you are flying fixed wing, you have your quad system, or in this case, or your VTOL capability as a backup. And we have some videos on our news page on our website that show about a selection of about 6 or 7 different fail safes that we have that. If something goes wrong during a fixed wing flight, for example, your pusher fails, we can detect that in software. If it's a fuel motor and you don't have an RPM sensor, we can still pick that up over the flight control system itself. Stall detection, a sudden drop or a tumble, all these things that we can detect and switch instantly over to the VTOL mode. So you can save the plane if it's flying above people. You have a second chance there.
Save the sensor, really, isn't it? It's about saving that expensive sensor. Now, on your website, you have that very groovy looking machine there. Maybe yes. You can run me through what on earth that is.
That's a prototype from a Swiss company, Swiss Aerobotics. They are developing this tail sitter. It's running through its trials at the moment. One of the challenges with tail sitters is, of course, making them work in wind. I think that's probably why they have their biggest challenge. This one is designed to carry a payload, I believe, of around 1 kilogram or so, but it's still in the early phases. Right now, they're testing a phone-based prototype of this one. We've also been trying a tricopter. We find those actually work quite well. There's one further down on that page. There you still have the advantages of a tail sitter. It handles quite well in wind, but so it's more stable. But yeah, you don't have quite the resistance of a quad configuration.
Okay. I'm just opening up the wrong window. When you said tricopter, what you meant was that X-craft thing.
Exactly, a tricopter.
There
formation.
it is. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything from them for a long time, have we? I wonder how they're going. I'm going to find out.
Yeah, find out.
Yeah, I've completely forgotten them.
So we've been flying that one around here, and it's actually it's quite nice. It handles quite well, and we'd love to see that go further. Again, we work with these manufacturers, so it's up to them in the end of the day to drive the product, but we do everything we can to. I mean, what our specialty is software, so we try and focus just on flight control and ground control, and we think that, you know, the way forward is to partner with companies that are able to do their special thing very well. So their manufacturers have built excellent systems, and their strength is not software. And together, and we're building a network too. So we also have we're building up a network of communications experts, people with expertise in beyond visual line of sight, and so on and so forth. And it's also extremely interesting and exciting to see this professional network building up. And when vendors come to us and say, look, this is what we want, or a solution provider, we can offer them a selection of manufacturers building something that suits them, or you know, help them, the manufacturers, get in touch with others who provide components that they'll require to fit the end user's needs. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I know your gears in our local Boy Made Good Duran's Alti transition, I think he calls it.
Yes.
And I know that that's flown for 6 hours because our man Tian went down there and watched it and saw it at the airfield. So we know that that lives up to all its claims, which is quite unusual in our world, really. So that's pretty cool. How's that worked, talking to a company? So that's how you're talking to a solutions provider. That's a company in South Africa. You're in Switzerland. The internet's a wonderful thing, but is it enough?
Just over internet can be very challenging. So what we usually do is we have to make a decision about, you know, is the next step, are we making progress? Is it better off just to go down there? In the case of Alti, we went down there to work with them to get this integrated and up and flying, and that's the fastest way by shore. But when we also did that with them because it was a very early stage for both of us, and Duran's very capable. I mean, he has a lot of experience on the multi-rotor side, so he was already able to get all of that ironed out on his own pretty much, and it was really about sort of flight tuning, perfecting. What we see with others is that we have varying levels of success. Some, they get hopelessly lost, you know, and really need a lot of support. But we do try and start with a good basis. So we know roughly what they're trying to do. We can give them the right kind of settings. There's a manual to start with. And then it very quickly turns into send us a video and send us log files. And we do a lot of log file analysis. And it's amazing what the other, especially the other two guys here, Andreas and Roman, can do just off log file analysis and finding out what the issues are. We give suggestions back on tuning, and more often than not, they get to the next level. But at some point, we might just have to stop and say, look, we need to look for another solution here. And they'll come here, we'll train them, or we go there.
And the failure modes, which you mentioned earlier, stall detection and all that sort of thing. How many hours of testing has that gone through? And do you simulate these things as well?
We can only simulate a bit in software. So using the software in the loop simulations, we do a lot of test flying. We've been flying the core of what we have now for over a year, and we're very conservative on you know, changes that we make there. We prefer stability over features, so we don't go throwing all the newest bells and whistles in there, because again, it's for commercial use and it should be reliable. So that's our highest priority. It really means going out there and trying it live, because you just never get that. You don't get the kind of turbulence you do outside when there's a wind blowing from a different direction over trees that you do in a software simulation. And we've come up with unexpected stalls in weather conditions where we didn't think it would happen, and just very strange things happening, or weather conditions, very cold, very moist, and they've been triggering failures that the system then catches. So it really means getting out there and trying it a lot.
And so were you moving to sort of the trendy thing to say these days is digital twin, isn't it? You can pull all those log files in and on a particular airframe, and then get to know, along with weather, or a more complete picture of what it might do. Are you taking down that data, or would that be down to the manufacturers to keep an eye on what their machines are doing?
No, so actually with what we've tried to do is provide a sort of a complete end-to-end system. So combined with the tablet, we try and encourage the use of also a Wi-Fi dongle that goes together with the autopilot. So we have a data connection that can be turned on and off. We don't want this on while it's flying necessarily, so that it will automatically sync compressed logs or reduced logs that we have that are always collected and transmitted. So at the end of a flight, these will then be shoveled over to the tablet, and the next time it connects with internet, it will then upload it to our analysis service, and then we generate a whole load of charts. So of every flight, you'll have this, all the data will be there, and we want to make that as transparent as possible, so that some data always comes through, that we always have at least a record of the basics, how long it flew, how it flew, and if need be, we can then go back and get more detailed logs if something went wrong. So the information is incredibly important, and also useful, for manufacturers as well, or solution providers, to understand how people are making use of the aircraft. How often are they flying? Is a maintenance schedule's a topic? Is the time to suggest maybe a replacement of certain components?
Yes, trend monitoring. I think I've said it before in this. I think it's about time we had a UAS industry standard for the format of those messages, so that they can fall into whatever reading system, and just have
right.
Systems monitoring stuff, and we need a standard language for that. Bruce, can you see yourself building one of these separate lifts in the near future?
No. But on the subject of these unusual craft, I was contacted some time ago by someone who needed a special craft with long endurance but vertical capabilities, and I looked at the gas electric hybrid concept, and that's got a lot going for it at the moment, because as an energy source, petrol, gasoline, whatever you want to call it, benzene, has a lot of energy per cubic centimeter of volume and per kilogram of mass. And I did some research, and there's some guys in Europe that are already working on this, and they're getting some really impressive flight times out of these things. And basically, a quad is still a fantastic craft, so long as you've got enough energy to keep it in the air for the duration that you want it to perform for. And I looked at it, and with some of these little 4-stroke petrol engines that you're now getting for model aircraft use, their efficiency is quite high. You combine that with an alternator to produce the power, the lithium battery for backup, and you tick a lot of boxes. You've got, basically, you can refuel it in 5 minutes rather than waiting for batteries to charge. You don't have to cut expensive lipos around the country, or dangerous lipos around the country, because you can buy fuel anywhere. And you have an onboard lipo, which is enough to give you a fail-safe capability. So if the engine stops, you've still got 2 or 3 minutes of flight time to locate a suitable place and land safely rather than falling out of the sky. So I tend to think we might see a few more craft based on this, because in all our electric stuff, if you're going to go VTOL, you've got the parasitic drag of all that extra props and so forth. And if you're going to go multi-rotor, you've got the energy limitation, and by mixing gas electric, you've got the benefits, or you wipe out those benefits. You nullify the overheads, the downsides. The only downside that I've really found is that of vibration, because we're so used to having super smooth electric power with our multi-rotors that when you put a nasty rattling, thumping internal combustion engine on there, vibration damping becomes an issue, and it can even affect things like the flight controller, where you've got this overriding vibration. So there's a lot of work to be done there to make it super good. But I still think in a lot of applications, this is something that I'm surprised there's not more work being done on it, because it gives us a leapfrog ahead from where batteries are at the moment. It's going to be an evolutionary process with our batteries to get more endurance. But we've got this massive And I've seen some tests where people have had, you know, simple 2-hour flying times easily with a multi-rotor, which is something you don't get really any other way. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which way that goes. So I'm still doing a bit of research on that, and you know, if anything comes of it, then I'll let you know.
Yeah, I think we've kind of reached the battery limits and physical limits of standard multi-rotors at the moment of design. DJI have been very clever. They're getting everything lighter and lighter and lighter, and that's how they've increased their endurance in the Mavic in particular. But it's only going up in units of 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. It's not going up by, they're not doubling their flight time and stuff like that. It's all still very clever and very necessary. But yeah, we're definitely at the limits. And yeah, I'm surprised when, but then again, okay, if it really, what the VTOL does, it makes you don't need to be a trained pilot to operate it. It's an out of the box experience, isn't it? It's what they're going after. Because if you really want to be efficient, you just have a big gas powered motor glider in effect, and you just fly that. Have someone that can take off, because if it's that efficient, you can take off 5 kilometers away on a made up airfield and fly into your survey area. This is assuming BV loss is allowed. You can fly into the you can fly into the area that you're using with an efficient airframe. So I suppose that is what I'm trying to say is, if BV loss is unlocked, if there's a simple way that it's unlocked, suddenly somebody that can fly a platform will be very useful, because they'll be able to fly the big platform that'll get the job done. I'm ranting on. I should say good evening to, or good afternoon to Adam. How you doing there, Adam?
Hey guys. Sorry for being late.
That's fine. I have noted your tardiness in the register. It's absolutely fine. Just do a couple more times, and obviously you'll have to see the headmaster. We've been talking about Simon Wilks, who's in Switzerland, UAVenture or however you want to say it. He's fantastic. VTOL software and stuff like that for various projects, and very interesting it is too. As you've joined us, Adam, I'll steer away from that very quickly and just ask. I don't need at liberty to say anything, but I believe you've been talking to the FAA recently.
Yeah, I finally got to a point where I decided it was time to try and reach out and set up a meeting, particularly about the FAA waiver process here in the U.S. and the way that they're actually issued. So if you guys follow any of the FAA website, or you follow along with the waiver process, you see that, you know, majority of those waivers that have been approved have been primarily for the night waiver, second followed by a few multiple aircraft like we saw during the Super Bowl halftime show, a couple beyond line of sight, one for flight over people, and we know the limitations of that, with CNN being that it's only for a tethered drone to 21 feet and under 2 pounds or something like that. So not really practical for the types of operations that my company does, which is mapping and typically flight over closed construction sites. These are sites that aren't open to the public. Everybody's wearing their PPE. They know we're there, you know, but they're not necessarily involved with the actual flight crew, which is one of the requirements for flight over people, or at least their definition of that, which is, you know, the flight over people can't be, anybody you fly over has to be involved in the crew, essentially. Excuse me, the pilot, VO, or, you know, a safety team. Anybody outside of that is essentially the, you know, flight over people. And then I began to see all these videos. You constantly see the videos online. I'm seeing mainstream TV shows. We're seeing YouTube videos and people flying over thousands of people, and you're like, wow, you know, here we are trying to do a legitimate operation, following all the rules, you know, 2 exemptions, 107 pilots, Part 61 pilots, insurance, closed construction site with permission, and we can't get a waiver to fly over people, but yet you've got people doing it all the time. So I set up a call through a connection of mine with the FAA, and they basically brought in heads of all the departments that have to do with UAS right now. And I posted this question and kind of wanted to get their feedback. And one of my other comments or criticism of the waiver process was that everything in the waiver process is based on what the FAA calls the performance-based standards. So depending on the particular waiver you're filing for, they have 3 or 4 or 5 things that you have to address in your waiver request. If you don't address them, they basically just toss it out. And my request or comment was, why not just have, we know they're waivers, but we know why people are requesting them. Why not just have a checkbox that says, for instance, in the night waiver application, let's say we know we're only going to operate in G airspace. We're only going to operate up to 200 feet AGL. We're going to use a visual observer and so on, and then acknowledge that you understand the rules and regulations and grant the waiver, you know. But instead, the FAA kind of has everybody guessing of what does that FAA guy that's actually today when he's reviewing that one waiver, what's his mood like? You know, does he think you've really addressed all of those performance-based standards and so on? So rather than have this big guessing game of everybody trying to just throw darts at the wall, trying to figure out what you know, you're trying to, what the FAA wants, just make it a little bit more clear. And you know, we kind of got some back and forth on that. I did bring up the fact that, you know, the waivers, they're all issued basically cookie cutter. They're all blanket. They're all the same. If you look at any night waiver that's been issued, there's no difference between waivers except for the name at the top. So what that tells me is that they may read the waiver, but they're not really granting the waivers based on what people are asking for. So for instance, in my case with flight over people, I don't want to fly over concerts. I don't want to fly over crowds or over freeways. I want to fly over a closed construction site. So if they really looked at that individual waiver and took it on a case-by-case basis, why can't they just address that and say, well, this gentleman or this company wants to fly over a closed construction site, and therefore, you know, he's got PPE, they've got, you know, it's not open to the public, everybody's aware of the operations. You know, we can grant a waiver based on this. Maybe it's for only, you know, maximum flight over 10 people, whatever that is. And what I got from that was they actually said, well, if somebody spelled that out, we would consider that. And I said, well, that's exactly what I did on my resubmission of my last waiver. So we're going to see where that pans out. I did think one thing that was interesting, when you do file for a waiver, typically within a few days, you get an email saying, you know, here's your tracking number, and use this tracking number for any future, you know, correspondence with the FAA. Well, when I reapplied for flight over people and a night waiver, I did not get that email, and it went a week or two. After I talked to these gentlemen on the phone, they told me to email the FAA number that handles the waivers, and instead of getting the you know, typical automatic reply back that says, we're currently reviewing your waiver and it can take up to 90 days. Mine said, hello, Mr. Andrews, we're currently processing your waiver. So don't know what that means. Don't know if they just added a little bit more personal touch that time, but it'll be interesting to see how this pans out.
And 90 days is the great big one of the bugbears for people over there, isn't it? Because it really is. It's a long time to wait.
It is.
A lot's going to happen on your closed construction site. A good building company is going to be finished by the time you get that done.
Exactly.
So, did they have anything to add or say? What I'm trying to say there is, what was the feedback like from the FAA? Were they listening to you, or were they just listening to you?
They definitely, I think initially they definitely were listening, and then they kind of listened, you know, like you were just saying. I think they got the point. You know, they stated kind of the same thing that's been stated many times, which is, you know, it took us 100 years to get to where we're at in manned aviation. Now everybody wants UAS to happen in 3 or 4 or 5 years. It's not going to happen. They were kind of patting themselves in the back about getting to 107 so quickly, which, you know, that's good. They did get to there. I did bring up the airspace waiver because that's another one that a lot of people are trying to get, or actually authorization, which there's some confusion between those two. But let's say an airspace authorization. So I have a job, you know, typically next week, it's in Class D airspace. I'm going to go online to the online portal. I'm going to put in my lat long, my altitude, my time and date. And the system, when working at its best, was supposed to kind of automatically check that lat and long, the altitude, the position in relation to the runways, and either automatically grant you a little block of airspace and send the operator an email along with the tower manager, tower personnel. That's not happening. And what I got from the call was that's still being done manually, every single one. So anybody that works in the commercial space right now knows that we don't get 90 days advance on projects. I get people calling saying, can you fly tomorrow? Can you fly Monday? Nobody's calling me up and saying, can you fly 90 days from now? So they know they need to work on that. They're working on it. You know, we'll see where it goes. I don't know if they're going to privatize that system or bring somebody else in, but that automation of the airspace authorization system really needs to get fixed, because again, 90 days is not going to work for most operations.
I think, and I stand under correction, that Loretta said last week, and I'll say it again, happy birthday, Loretta. That's why she's not here tonight. That system is already privatized, and so it is a little bit under threat to your the suspension in operations in a lot of parts of the FAA and stuff like that. Did they have any sort of, did you probe them on that? Did you ask them, well, are waivers being issued now at the moment in this current situation?
Yeah, I'm aware of the grid system as well. I've seen some samples of that. Matter of fact, we had some posted on our Facebook page. The airspace waiver thing came up at the end of the call, and they were kind of trying to end the call after about 45 minutes. So we didn't get a chance to really dive into the waiver, airspace waiver process. Only that, you know, he understood the frustration. He understood. One of the other things too that I offered up, and this has been kind of one of my frustrations, and we've talked about in our drone blog, is that a lot of these UAS task force, if you will, these UAS teams, you know, they're put together by people that, in my mind, only have a vested interest in their own company. You know, Best Buy and Walmart and Amazon. They all want to do delivery and things like that, and they're not pulling in people that actually work in this industry, on boots on the ground kind of a thing. You know, I mean, GoPro, that's great. They make cameras. You know, Best Buy, I don't know, they sell drones. I mean, why not have, you know, a 20-member team and at least have 5 of those people actually work in the industry? Not just the high dollar, you know, big corporate companies that are just really trying to get their stake in the game before, you know, delivery becomes legal or whatever. So, and I offered it up. I said, listen, you got a task force, you got a UAV consortium, whatever you want. I will donate all my time and effort to any kind of team or task force that you have that will help companies like mine get through these things quicker, because as we all know, the commercial guys are regulated, you know, 10 times more than the hobbyists. You know, we can't fly in airspace without a waiver. We can't, if you're a 333, you got to have a NOTAM. You got to have a 107. You can't fly over people. You can't fly over at night. Can't go over 400 feet. Hobbyists can run down to Best Buy, buy a drone, blast off in airspace, fly at night, fly over a party. And really, there's no repercussions other than if he's actually putting lives in danger by, like, flying over the approach end of a runway and he actually gets caught. But other than that, he's really not even breaking any laws. You know, however, the guys that have all the vested time and money in the business, we could lose our pilot's license, our manned pilot's license, as well as our 107. You know, there's all kinds of things that we open ourselves up to.
Yeah, and I have my theory is, and I think it's been rather proven actually, is why those companies are on those groups. It's because the FAA can leverage them to find out exactly how many products they've sold, and then they can work out just as how well that registration process for the person, not the craft, is going. And I heard that on January the 7th, a very large company was hauled in and made to tell the FAA exactly how many aircraft they'd sold over the Christmas period, and that number was very many more than people actually registered. And we've said it again before. It's actually, and we've said it with Bruce, it's the FAA's. If people aren't registering and understanding that system as a private flyer, the $5, get your number, stick it anywhere, and including inside the battery hatch, it's not in some ways the fault of the person buying the machine, although ignorance is no excuse. It's kind of the fault of the FAA for not getting the message out there properly, in my humble opinion. And I'm pretty sure that's why they've got them on those committees. And I've gone off on a rant there, haven't I? So what was the overall feeling then you got from that interaction with the FAA?
You know, I kind of status quo. I think, you know, my comments were duly noted. I mean, I'm not going to change the FAA, but I thought, hey, maybe, you know, somebody working in the industry, giving them some insight from all angles. I mean, I answer questions on forums. We get emails all the time. We see the lack of education in this industry right now. People that are, you know, I just passed my 107, but then they post a picture of a chart and they say, can I fly here? Well, didn't you just pass your 107? You know, so, and I know Jonathan loves those questions too, and we were chatting about that the other day, but it's crazy. So like you said, if these are people that actually go out and study and take a test and they don't know, how do we expect little Jimmy who just got the drone for Christmas to know, or to dig down in the bottom of the box and get the little postcard that says, you know, go to this website and figure out what you should know? They don't even read the manual, so they're not going to read the postcard, you know.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. When you know, be you 50 or be you 10, when you open that box with the toy in it, you go fly the thing. You don't go right down to the bottom of that thing. Bruce does. Bruce always reads all the manuals. We know that. We would never be ever be that irresponsible. And so, well, thanks for telling us about that, Adam. I'm going to flip round to Bruce now and say thank you very much for that soaring video. That was really very cool, and if anybody hasn't seen it, then they should dive off to your website and have a look at that. Love the diagrams, love the 3D work you did there, and the rendering. Just how many hours did you have that all going in your render farm?
Oh, it's still going now. It's finished. It'll be much sharper when it's finished.
Oh, well, that's good. Will it be VR when it's finished then?
Absolutely. And what is it? Augmented reality. That's the buzzword of the day, isn't it?
I know. I think that one's sailed. I think that one's gone past. I think it's just pure VR now, I think. Yeah. A couple of things I've seen. Well, it's a very cool video, and yes, people should go and watch that. What do we all think of the Super Bowl drones? The big scandal is it wasn't live. I think that was quite sensible, but obviously people are super offended about all that. Are you offended, Adam?
I wasn't offended. I was actually looking forward to more of it. I thought it was going to be an indoor thing, you know, all done with light sensors and pads on the ground. I thought it was going to be an indoor event, but hey, I mean, it got the word out a little bit. It shows what things are capable of. But yeah, I could have used more of it actually.
So what's the Super Bowl thing? Is it like rugby?
It's girls rugby. It's girls rugby, isn't it? I think because they have all that sort of padding stuff, as far as I can tell. Because yes, that none of that would have been allowed at my school. I'm sure not at yours, nor Simon's either.
That's right.
Wasn't there a 30 nautical mile exclusion around the Super Bowl or something? I mean, goodness me, why can't you fly a model aircraft with a 3-minute endurance 29 miles from the Super Bowl? What harm is that going to do?
I think it was even a little larger than that. I think it was like 35 miles.
Wasn't it 30? I think it was 34. But let's not argue over that. And was that nautical miles or statute miles? Yeah. Oh no, weird American miles.
There's nautical miles, I think. You must use nautical miles when you're flying. Yeah.
Yeah. So then 34 nautical miles is an awful lot further than 35 miles of whichever sort you use. And we'll have to ask if your render farm can do a quick rendering of the actual footprint, the area, the area of 34 nautical mile radius that's a huge area, isn't it? Well, that's 68 straight across. That's enormous. That is enormous. Yeah. But it obviously worked, except for the 300 drones that got in the week before and did a show.
Yeah.
I thought it was an amazing bit of work, really, and fair play, not to Intel but to Ascending Technologies, the chaps actually behind that Intel bought. So well done, Intel, for buying Ascending Technologies, because they're definitely a good company to buy. So well done, those guys. GoPro relaunch.
Don't forget Lady Gaga's contribution.
Well, I said at the top, I mentioned that this land was our land and your land, and it's made for you and me. The GoPro relaunch, how's that going to go? Any thoughts, ideas?
Like a lead balloon, I suspect.
Without any of the balloon part of it to start with, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, I've already seen a couple of videos out there with very tilted horizons, the GoPro curve, and it was a great machine in 2014, is my opinion. Am I going to be the only one to slate it?
You only get one chance to make a first impression, and they kind of blew it, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. The trust is gone. Well, I think so. What do you reckon, Adam?
Same. I think it was 2 years too late when it was launched, and then with all the lawsuit issues. I mean, you look at what happened to the Solo. Was kind of in the same boat when they launched. They came out and they didn't have the gimbal ready for a couple months, and then the gimbal finally came out and they had problems with the gimbal, and then everything started kind of going downhill from there. So yeah, you got to get it right the first time in this industry.
But I will say that the Solo, I think, is currently one of the best buys out there at $299.
It is.
You end up with a fantastic. You couldn't make one yourself to muck about with for $299, really. So yeah, and that's with a gimbal. What were they when they came out? Were they $1,200 or $1,400 when they came out? I think.
Yeah, they were. The gimbal was $399, and the drone was either $999 or $11.99 or something. It was about $1,400 for the whole thing. So
yeah, wow, that's quite a price drop, isn't it? That is quite a price drop. And then the other thing I was going to mention was another thing that we actually caused yet another call of fake news. Oh, Iris with the box.
Built mini irises. Yeah.
Is that unopened? They, to fair play to them, they did open source the files for the airframe for that, so you can print your own now, or Adam certainly can, and behind himself there. Another story that we picked up on or saw, that there was someone actually told us that Autel were laying off all their sales team, and they've spun that to be well, we're putting the money into R&D instead. And again, I'll throw it to the floor. Any thoughts when a company gets rid of its sales team, what might be happening?
They're selling too much gear.
Oh, that'll be it. You trust you to pick it up straight away. What did I think of that? So yeah, one wonders if they're struggling with the vagaries of 2017, which is turning out already. We're only just into February to be quite a barbaric year for drone companies and retailers. Yeah, it's not been the best start, has it? Has anyone else seen anything else that's caught their eye this week?
No, but I'd like to have a chat about what Adam said, which believe it or not, regulations. That's my bag. You're not alone, Adam. Here in New Zealand, our regulators have the same lack of pragmatism, the same lack of common sense, and actually a surprising lack of understanding in their own regulations. I sent them back to their lawyers last week, making an assertion relating to the regulations, which was actually incorrect. I got a separate legal opinion, and it said, no, that's wrong. The regulations actually say this. So they had to go back to their lawyers to interpret their own regulations. And I think it was last week, our lawyer panelists were saying that 101 in America, nobody understands it. It's complete, it's what is a community-based organization, all these undefined things. And it seems endemic around the world. Every country's got these same group of know-nothing regulators who speak from a position of ignorance and create these regulations without ever having done any of this stuff themselves. And as Adam says, they bring on board people who big names in the industry, but they're all looking out for number one. Why don't they just hire some people who've had experience in the industry and experience in the hobby and get them to do these regulations, so they've got some intelligent people with experience coming up with regulations that are practical, common sense, and don't need to be enforced because people are going to follow them. I mean, like if I was in commercial operation in the USA, it'd be so tempting just to say, oh damn it, I'll just pretend I'm a hobbyist and do what I see on YouTube. If I get caught, I get caught. It's a risk, but hopefully I've made enough money to pay the fine by then. So, it's like, what's wrong with these regulators? Are they a special breed of people where they have their brains removed at birth? I don't know.
Simon, what's it like in Switzerland? What are the Swiss regulations?
Actually, it's extremely liberal. I was really surprised when I found out about this. They have very few rules. You could fit it on a little piece of paper like this. So they're quite trivial. You can't fly within 5 kilometers of an airport. You can't fly closer than 100 meters to a group of multiple dozens of people. It's not even exactly defined. And a few more things like this. Their wording was, and it kind of goes along the direction that you guys are talking about, is that they know that this is a brand new area, and they're watching and waiting, and as long as people can self-regulate, and obviously nothing serious goes wrong, they're going to let things roll. And so during this period of time now, they're exploring and understanding, and groups are being formed to also help coordinate with them and you know, discuss this whole topic and work out regulations that make sense as they'll be necessary. So I'm actually very happy with it. It's very sensible. It's very open. And the only risk, I guess, for us is that, you know, we may just take on EU regulations that come up, and their things are much stricter, and they're discussing rules and regulations that will be, you know, a massive change for Switzerland. But we'll see how it goes. So far, excellent.
Here in South Africa is dreadful, shocking. The pilot licensing costs quite a little money, and it's fairly straightforward to do, but it does cost a bit of time. But you also have to register your business, and that is nigh on impossible. And you have to do things, just crazy things for the business registration, and that involves lots of government departments. Just licensing of the radios. A friend of mine, it's taken more than 6 months already, and it is just, you know, this is a standard radio I bought, and it's got to just go through a paperwork procedure, and that costs a fortune. Licensing the business costs more than pilot licensing, and you have to have at least 3 people in your business. You can't, because you need to have a safety person, you need to have a pilot, and you need to have something else. There's 3 people, so you cannot have a single person RPA business here. You can't be a sole trader. In the UK, obviously where I'm originally from, they seem very much like Switzerland. They have a stick that they wield every once in a while, but they're very aware that they want the UK to be part of the industry be a big part of the industry moving forward, and that's a great help. And they believe in education. They don't rush out to find people instantly. They do go through an education sort of period. If you're in the UK and you manage to attract the attention of the CAA legal department, you really do need to lawyer up, because if they've got to that stage, then they are coming for you. They don't bother unless they do that. And I think there's been about 20 cases over there now, but just people doing things which as a community we would understand were crazy things to do. Bruce, that allows me to say, why don't you just say your simple rules once again?
Yeah, basically, do not operate a drone in a manner that endangers personal property and stay below 400 feet.
There we are. That's the whole rule set. We need to have T-shirts or something that say Bruce's rules for the win or something like that. You know, we need to come up with something, and we need to make that a mantra and something to add to our Twitter handles and all that sort of thing. But it's, as I said last time, it's too simple to be used. It's just not complicated enough. Like all aircraft, no aircraft shall fly until the weight of paperwork exceeds the weight of the aircraft. I believe that's the law. Oh, here's Gene joining us with 6 minutes to go. Gene, come in, Gene. Hello, over. Hello, Gene. How you doing?
Oh, finally made it in. The internet was finally smiling on me.
What does the internet look like when it smiles? I've never seen that.
I've certainly seen it when it frowns. What did I miss? Tell me what I missed.
You missed talking about separate lift thrust and things like that, and VTOLs. Why I don't believe in them, but Simon Wilks there in Switzerland does.
Bruce I'm working on it.
Yeah, they'll convince me eventually. Bruce and his simple rules for simple times in a simple place, and Adam has been speaking to the FAA. That's what you've missed, basically. Have you got? Has anything caught your eye this week?
Oh, well, I thought that you didn't talk about the drones that actually didn't fly live at the Super Bowl, did you?
Yeah.
No, we skirted around that controversy because obviously a lot of people are very upset about that, and one wouldn't want to cause upset around the place. Yeah, did you? Well, you obviously thought that was a problem that they didn't fly live.
Well, of course. I mean, do you think Adam just talked to the FAA? Did they say it was okay to fly over crowds, Adam?
That's a negatory. So
That's
yeah,
negatory. That's what I heard. You know, if they would have closed the roof, maybe it would be okay.
Yes, Gene, like okay. I actually thought they were going to fly in the stadium, like just in the middle of the field, you know, with light technology or the mats that they use to have those autonomously fly. That's actually how I thought they were going to do it, but I was surprised to see that it was somewhere off outside the dome on the back end of it. So
I was actually with you. I thought they were going to do it on the inside as well because it is big enough for them to do it. But apparently GPS was problematic.
Well, yeah, I didn't know if they would need GPS or not. I know a lot of those indoor drone, you know, flights that you see, the autonomous flights, they're all done with, you know, the light balls and the light sensors and the colored QR mats, and you know, they do all that without GPS. That was my thinking of it. So
yeah, in those rigs, I think Bruce has got one of those motion capture rigs for when he's doing his animations and stuff for his render farm. Do you wear the suit with the balls on it? Have you got balls out there, Bruce?
Only for recreational purposes.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I believe that video is available online.
Mouth, you know.
Well, I just look forward to that next time. Yeah, I know those things are completely outdoor and autonomous. And all I'll say, or one of many things I'll say, is that many years ago, I think it was 2013, they did a flight over London for Star Trek on Earth Day. And it was the same week that the FAA had two were flying in at night in a danger area somewhere, or what restricted airspace you call that over there, don't you? And the FAA and everyone going, wow, we can fly. Look, we've got two flying at night. Meanwhile, in the center of London, there's the Star Trek logo out of about 50 of them flying in formation right next to Tower Bridge. That was so already, you know. So they've been perfecting that for a while, and they're great. They're really nice people, the guys from Ascending Technology. They really are. There's been a couple of rescue situations over in the States. So I was contacted about a missing diver and sent them your way, Gene, and you made a fair comment about FLIR again, and water, a very sad situation.
Yeah, and of course, you know, they did recover that diver, right?
Yeah, but I hope maybe you could run through what your thoughts on FLIR were with that again.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate situation, you know, and the man did have a dry suit on, which would have obviously helped. But you know, the events as I heard them as they surfaced, they were on a very deep dive, and you know, if you don't ascend properly from a deep dive, there are always problems. And his partner had problems and lost consciousness. And and this is my own supposition. I was not given any information other than, you know, my own supposition here, is that he was probably unconscious as well when he made the surface. You know, I don't know anything about whether he had a Mae West on or anything like that other than a dry suit. And they had hoped that perhaps a FLIR would have been helpful in that situation. And unfortunately, of course, all the research that we've been doing with aerial forensics, let's put it that way, you know, we've discovered how quickly a person can become ambient. They'll reach ambient, and they'll become indiscernible even with FLIR. And given that the only thing that was exposed on the man was his head, and even that he had a hood on, which minimized your potential for heat source even more. You know, it was unfortunate, but I just had to say, you know, the survivability and that even in 80-degree water is fairly low. after about 12 hours. And he had been in there, days. And unfortunately, they found him in 220 feet of water. And there was really, I mean, a drone or a FLIR or even a full-scale aircraft flying FLIR would have been able to do in that particular case. So it was one of those very unfortunate things. And prayers to the family, and kudos to all the searchers that put in 3 days of really, really diligent searching.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was a sad one, and the sort of well, you could feel it in the emails that were coming about that, and I know you deal with that all the time, and I don't see that, but yeah, that was very sad. No, that was bad, isn't it? I was gonna Bruce, tell us a joke. Can't end on a down note like that.
Yeah, that was a cheery note to end on, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I think he does this deliberately. Well,
I don't.
What I want to see though, is that you have like a Thunderbird's chair or something like that. I want to see you disappear down through the floor, and then a spaceship to appear. Do you know what I'm talking about with that, Gene? Did you have Thunderbirds over
right here? They're all right here.
Oh. Yeah, that's right. There's no spaceships anymore. Only drones.
There you go. I think I don't know if you've got an iris hiding there, Simon, but Adam said he has. I think I can see one hiding behind Gene, and Bruce has already got his iris out. Oh, you've got one as well. I'm the only person without an iris. Oh, that's no good.
This is our crop experimental iris. It's been butchered.
Okay.
With a nice radar on it.
Funny. Which radar is that you've got fitted on that?
That's the one from Aerotena.
Okay,
actually,
yeah.
Also, just for people who don't like hybrid VTOL, we're also doing crop spraying autopilot.
I was going to ask you about that earlier. So, that's what that is back there, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's from one partner, and we'll be offering this to basically anyone who's building their crop spraying system product, so they can integrate this and get a full crop spraying autopilot.
So is that also under the Air Rails brand?
Yes, also Air Rails, also be with the tablet and the whole thing. Because of course, when you can do a hybrid VTOL, then you've got a multi-rotor as well. And of course, we're not going to ignore fixed wing at some point, but that's just not on our priority at the moment. But hand-launched flying wings, for example, are definitely something we're experimenting with in the background.
They will work well for you, sir.
Sorry?
They will work well for you, sir.
Yes, actually, I love flying wings. I mean, that's my passion is wings, really. I mean, I'm not such a multi-rotor fan. If I'm going to go out and have fun flying, I'd rather take a wing with me. Yes. Oh, yeah. Send one over.
Yeah,
Simon, does Simon's flight controller support traditional helicopters?
No, not helicopters. No.
Okay.
And does your ground control station do terrain following?
Yeah, so with the radar, we do terrain following, and we also support terrain adaptation of the plans. So when you do a survey, for example, it will then adjust it to the terrain. It'll pull in the height model and
that's exactly where I was going. Okay, so you'll roughly follow the contours at 100 meters or whatever, and then
you can
get right down in the weeds with the radar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that's very interesting. I think, look, we've gone 4 minutes over now because I added in that death and destruction. Is there before I call time? Does anyone have anything else? In that case, it leaves me to say subscribe, do all those other things, watch Bruce's channel and his thermal soaring tutorial, which includes CG graphics, VR content, and a word from the Queen. It's truly wonderful. And hopefully we'll see you all again next week, same time, same back channel. Subscribe if you will. Thanks very much, gentlemen. It's been great. I'll see you all again soon. Cheers.
Adios.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Cheers.